High in the frigid, wind-scoured Andes of Peru, a humble root grows where few other crops can survive. For thousands of years, the native people have used it to endure the harsh climate, nourish their bodies, and, so the stories go, rekindle fertility and vitality. Today, you'll find the same root powder in smoothies, capsules, and wellness shots marketed as a miracle for energy, libido, and hormonal balance. What exactly is this plant, and does it really deserve its reputation? Welcome to Botanic Heritage, where we dive into the deep history and hard science of the world's most storied medicinal plants. I'm your host, a botanical researcher and storyteller, and today we're exploring Maca Root, its origins, chemistry, and the truth behind its meteoric rise. Maca, or Lepidium meyenii, is often called Peruvian ginseng, though it isn't related to true ginseng. This hardy member of the Brassicaceae family grows only in the high Andes of Peru and Bolivia, often above 4,000 meters. It has been cultivated for more than 2 millennia, and Andean farmers still consider the dried roots a valuable commodity that can be preserved for years and traded for staple foods. More recently, Maca has become a global supplement, sold for everything from energy to erectile function to balancing hormones. Its appeal lies partly in its exotic origins and partly in modern research, suggesting it contains a unique spectrum of bioactive compounds. Yet behind the hype lies a complex story rooted in indigenous knowledge, colonial encounters, and contemporary science. To appreciate maca's place in healing traditions, we have to start where it grows. The plant is endemic to the highlands around Lake Junin and the central Peruvian Andes. At elevations between 3,800 and 4,500 meters, the air is thin, the sun intense, and the soil rocky. Few crops can survive here, but maca has adapted through a low rosette of frilly leaves that hug the ground and a fleshy hypocotyl root that stores nutrients. The root, which resembles a small turnip, comes in colors ranging from yellow to red, purple, and black. Indigenous farmers classify different ecotypes and attribute distinct properties to each. Evidence of maca cultivation dates back more than 2,000 years. Archaeological remains and Spanish colonial chronicles indicate that the plant was domesticated between 700 and 600 BCE in what is now the Andean district of Junin province. Oral tradition, preserved through generations, tells of local communities cultivating maca, drying the roots and trading them with lower valley peoples for maize and other staples. Chroniclers such as Ruiz and Cobo in the 17th century noted that maca thrives in the coldest, wildest parts of the mountains and was consumed to improve fertility and overall vitality. There is even a colonial story of Spaniards feeding maca to their livestock when they discovered their animals struggled to reproduce at high altitude. The cattle reportedly regained fertility. Whether apocryphal or not, these stories underscore the plant's reputation as a fertility enhancer. Yet not all indigenous people considered maca an aphrodisiac. Ethnographers Herman and Burnett interviewed locals who insisted that maca was traditionally eaten for energy rather than to boost libido. Natives typically consume the root dried and boiled or roasted. Fresh maca is considered harsh on the stomach, so Andean families advise drying the bulbs, pounding them into flour, and cooking them in stews, breads, or a sweet porridge. In Huancayo, you might taste maca pudding or jam. This humble food, more than a drug or tonic, sustained people at high altitude and entered their rituals and myths as a symbol of resilience and abundance. Science and compounds. What makes maca interesting to modern pharmacologists is its unusual chemical profile. Researchers classify its secondary metabolites into several major groups: fatty acid derivatives known as macamides and macanes, sulfur-containing glucosinolates, alkaloids, and a host of polysaccharides, polyphenols, sterols, and flavonoids. Macamides are N-benzyl alkamides unique to maca. They consist of a benzylamine linked to fatty acids like oleic, linoleic, and linolenic acids. Macanes are related unsaturated fatty acids. Glucosinolates, which are also abundant in broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables, hydrolyze into isothiocyanates that have been studied for their antioxidant and anti-cancer properties. Maca's alkaloids include lepidolins and macapyrolins, while its polysaccharides contribute to immune modulating activity. Dried maca hypocotyls are nutritionally dense. They contain roughly 13–16% protein, 59% carbohydrates, and 8% fiber with modest fat content. The roots supply essential amino acids and significant amounts of minerals like iron, calcium, copper, zinc, and potassium. Mineral content varies with soil and altitude. Peruvian maca tends to be rich in zinc, while Chinese-grown roots may contain more copper and sodium. This nutrient profile helps explain why highland families use maca as a staple food. It provided calories, proteins, and micronutrients in a region where few crops could grow. Beyond its nutrients, researchers have probed maca's bioactive components for physiological effects. Preclinical studies attribute neuroprotective, anti-inflammatory, immunoregulatory, and antioxidant activities to maca extracts. Animal experiments suggest certain ecotypes can enhance fertility, reduce fatigue, support metabolic and gastrointestinal health, protect the liver, and even modulate blood pressure. The diversity of compounds, more than 100 secondary metabolites have been identified, likely work in concert, and scientists still don't know which ones drive specific effects. Health benefits. 1. Energy and mood. The claim that maca boosts energy and mood is widespread in marketing, and there is some preliminary evidence to support it, though it remains modest. In a randomized, placebo-controlled study that administered spray-dried extracts of red or black maca to 175 adults over 12 weeks, participants reported increases in mood, energy, and overall health-related quality of life relative to placebo. Red maca produced slightly greater improvements than black maca. Notably, more than 80% of participants experienced an uplift in mood and energy, and there were no serious adverse effects. The investigators hypothesized that macamides may be acting on the endocannabinoid system by inhibiting fatty acid amide hydrolase, thereby increasing anandamide and influencing emotional state. Elevated levels of gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA, and choline in red maca extracts might also contribute to relaxation and cognitive benefits. Yet it's important to emphasize that these changes were subjective and the sample size was modest. While maca may provide a natural pick-me-up, it is not a substitute for adequate sleep, nutrition, and medical care. 2. Sexual health and fertility. Maca's reputation as a libido enhancer dates back to colonial times, when chroniclers claimed it improved fertility in women and animals. Modern science offers a nuanced picture. Several small clinical studies have examined maca's effect on sexual desire. In the 2016 trial mentioned above, self-perceived sexual desire increased slightly with red maca, but only about half the participants reported a benefit, and a strong placebo effect was evident. Earlier trials using gelatinized maca flour or extracts found similar modest improvements in sexual well-being among men with mild erectile dysfunction and little change in postmenopausal women. A systematic review published in 2024 concluded that maca may improve sexual desire and erectile function, but urged caution due to small sample sizes and variable quality. Animal studies have shown that black maca can increase sperm count and improve memory in rodents, whereas red maca may reduce prostate enlargement and increase bone density, but translating these findings to humans is speculative. 3. Hormonal balance and menopause. Perhaps the most compelling data on maca involve its effects on menopause. A double-blind randomized trial of pre-gelatinized organic maca, maca-gyo, in early postmenopausal women found that 8 weeks of treatment significantly reduced the frequency and severity of hot flushes and night sweats, lowering the Kupperman menopausal index from 22 to 10. Participants reported relief from vaginal dryness, loss of energy, and depressive symptoms. Unlike hormone replacement therapy, maca did not supply external estrogens or progestins. Instead, plant sterols in maca appear to act as biochemical triggers that help the body normalize hormone production. In animal studies, the same preparation reduced cortisol and adrenocorticotropic hormone, suggesting an anti-stress effect. These findings position maca as a potential non-hormonal option for menopausal discomfort, but again, the sample size was limited and long-term safety data remained sparse. 4. Cardiovascular and metabolic effects. Several lines of evidence hint that maca may influence blood pressure and glucose regulation. Observational studies in high-altitude Peruvian communities found that people who regularly consume maca have lower body mass indices and lower systolic blood pressure. In the 2016 clinical trial, red and black maca extracts had no significant effect on blood pressure at either low or high altitude, but researchers noted that maca's high potassium and low sodium content and its possible angiotensin-converting enzyme, ACE inhibitory activity, could explain small reductions in blood pressure reported in other studies. The same trial observed that black maca reduced fasting glucose levels over 12 weeks, echoing animal experiments in which maca improved glucose tolerance. Yet there are also reports of mild elevation in liver enzymes and blood pressure in subjects with metabolic syndrome taking high doses of maca. Taken together, these data suggest maca may modestly support metabolic health, but conclusions are tentative and more rigorous trials are necessary. 5. Adaptogenic resilience. Beyond discrete outcomes, maca has long been considered an adaptogen, an agent that helps the body adapt to stress. The concept, borrowed from traditional herbalism, fits maca's original role in helping Andean peoples survive in thin air, freezing nights, and intense UV radiation. Ethnographic accounts describe Andean families eating boiled maca daily to ward off exhaustion and mountain sickness, and to improve their ability to work in the highlands. In contemporary research, maca consumption has been linked to lower incidence of high-altitude illness and a reduction in chronic mountain sickness scores. The root's mix of carbohydrates for energy, minerals for oxygen transport, and secondary metabolites that may influence mood and stress hormones support its adaptogenic reputation. Nevertheless, adaptogenic claims remain broad and unstandardized. What seems clear is that maca contributes to nutritional resilience rather than acting as a pharmacological cure. How people actually use it. In the high Andes, maca is prepared in ways that prioritize both nutrition and digestion. Fresh roots are rarely eaten. Instead, harvested bulbs are sun-dried for weeks and can then be stored for months or years. Dried maca is boiled into a thick porridge called mazamorra de maca, often sweetened with honey or ground into flour to bake breads and pancakes. Some communities ferment the cooked mash to make a mildly alcoholic beverage. Boiling and fermenting are believed to reduce potential irritants in fresh maca and improve digestibility. Outside South America, maca is most commonly available as a powder made by grinding the dried hippocotl and sold in health food shops. There are also gelatinized powders where starches are removed through heat and pressure, resulting in a more concentrated extract. Liquid tinctures, capsules, and tablets offer defined doses, typically ranging from 500 ml to 3 green per day. Modern supplement manufacturers also produce spray-dried extracts standardized to particular compounds such as macamides or glucosinolates. Red, black, and yellow maca powders may be sold separately because animal studies hint at different properties for each ecotype. In smoothies, the earthy, malty flavor pairs well with cacao and nut butter. Some athletes add maca powder to pre-workout drinks in the belief that it will enhance endurance. Myths and misconceptions. The surge in maca's popularity has inevitably bred misconceptions. A persistent myth is that maca functions like a hormone or contains hormones. It does not. Maca is non-hormonal. Instead, its plant sterols may gently influence the endocrine system's feedback loops. Another misconception is that maca is a potent aphrodisiac or fertility cure. While maca has improved sexual desire and sperm parameters in small studies, the effects are modest and often comparable to placebo. Native sources emphasize the plant's energizing role rather than sexual stimulation. There is also confusion between maca and Peruvian ginseng. Unlike Asian ginseng, maca contains no ginsenosides and acts through different pathways. Quality control is another issue. Maca's chemical composition varies by color, growing conditions, and processing methods. Commercial powders may blend multiple ecotypes or even include other species like Lepidium peruvianum, marketed under the same name. Purified extracts not prepared according to traditional methods may contain unusual compounds or contaminants. Unscrupulous suppliers sometimes adulterate maca powder with malted barley or soy flour, and the booming demand in China has led to overharvesting and concerns about ecological sustainability. As with any herbal supplement, consumers should seek products with transparent sourcing and third-party testing, safety, and balance. What about safety? Multiple reviews have concluded that maca is generally safe for most people when consumed as a food or in moderate supplement doses. The United States Pharmacopeia evaluated maca root powder, gelatinized powder, and dry extracts and found no serious adverse events. Traditional consumption by Andean populations averages more than 100 grams of cooked maca per day with no known toxic effects. In clinical trials, doses from 1.5 gram to 3 g of maca powder were well tolerated. Pre-gelatinized maca has been deemed non-toxic in animal studies with an LD50 exceeding 7.5 g kilos body weight. Nevertheless, some cautions are warranted. A few participants in modern studies reported gastrointestinal upset, insomnia, or moodiness. Individuals with hormone-sensitive conditions such as breast, uterine, or prostate cancers should consult healthcare providers before using maca because its endocrine-modulating effects are not fully understood. Maca may interact with thyroid medications, blood pressure drugs, or anticoagulants due to its mineral content and potential to influence steroid metabolism. Because dried maca can concentrate heavy metals from the soil, quality certifications testing for contaminants such as lead and arsenic are essential. Pregnant or breastfeeding women and people with severe allergies to cruciferous vegetables should avoid maca unless advised by a physician. Above all, maca should be viewed as a nutritional supplement and not a replacement for evidence-based medical treatment. Modern relevance. Why has maca become so popular now? Part of the answer lies in the global fascination with superfoods and adaptogens. As lifestyles become more stressful and people seek natural ways to support energy and hormonal health, plants like maca, ashwagandha, and ginseng have been swept into the wellness spotlight. The market analytics firm Innova reported over 1,400 products worldwide include maca on their ingredient lists. Smoothie bars toot maca, lattes as natural energizers, and supplements promise hormone balance without side effects. Social media influencers share before and after stories of improved libido or gym performance. Yet this rapid commercialization can eclipse maca's cultural context. For Andean communities, maca is not an exotic novelty, but a staple crop requiring careful cultivation, harvest, and processing. Its popularity offers economic opportunities, but also risks unsustainable farming, land disputes, and adulteration. Maintaining biodiversity and fair trade in maca's supply chain will be crucial as demand continues. Maca also resonates with current scientific interest in nutrition-based medicine. Researchers are investigating how combinations of nutrients and phytochemicals influence endocrine, immune, and neural systems. The discovery that macamides may modulate the endocannabinoid system and that glucosinolates can yield bioactive isothiocyanates aligns with a broader shift towards understanding how foods communicate with our signaling pathways. At the same time, maca exemplifies the challenge of translating traditional botanicals into modern supplements. The variation in chemical composition, the modest size and mixed results of clinical trials, and the tendency of marketing to leap ahead of evidence. Its story reminds us that botanicals often occupy a middle ground between food and drug, requiring both respect for indigenous knowledge and rigorous scientific evaluation. The story of Maca Root stretches from the windswept plateaus of the Andes to health food shelves around the world. It is a plant that sustained Andean peoples for millennia, providing calories, minerals, and a sense of resilience in a hostile environment. Colonial observers turned it into a fertility tonic, and modern companies sell it as an adaptogenic cure-all. Science tells a more nuanced tale. Maca contains a rich assortment of compounds, macamides, machenes, glucosinolates, alkaloids, and more that may modestly influence mood, energy, sexual function, and hormonal balance. Its nutrient density and cultural significance justify including it in our diets, and early clinical studies are promising for menopausal symptoms and subjective well-being. Yet the evidence remains limited, and the hype often overshoots the data. Maca should not be seen as a magic bullet, but as a functional food that, when sourced responsibly and consumed in moderation, can support a balanced lifestyle. As we continue to explore natural medicines, let us remember the communities that first cultivated these plants and the ecosystems that sustain them. Respect for traditional knowledge, careful scientific research, and sustainable practices can ensure that plants like Maca serve both local cultures and global well-being. If you decide to try Maca, choose products from reputable sources, start with small amounts, and pay attention to how your body responds. Join us on Botanic Heritage for more journeys into the origins and realities of the world's healing plants.